welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Have you noticed there seem to be more old people around? Life expectancy 50 years ago in the United States was around 67 years. Now it's about 75 years. Well, I don't plan to try to change that with this radio broadcast, but I would like to say some things about what the Bible has in it concerning old people. Here's what the law of Moses commanded, as found in Leviticus 19:32. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God. I am the Lord. To rise before an older person means to pay respect to him, much as we would if a soldier decorated for bravery in battles that preserved our freedom, or a magistrate who had won respect and honor for having rendered many wise and just decisions were in our presence. The hoary head means the gray head, which is the head of one who has walked the roads of life and felt the heat and cold of experience. The Bible tells us what we also all know from personal experience of how God set up the cycle of life. We begin as babies, we go through the sometimes awkward teenage years, we arrive at full maturity, which is typically the most capable stage of our lives, and then we enter a stage where our natural powers decline. During the early years of our lives, we are not as morally accountable as when we've reached the full range of powers of adulthood. And similarly, the accountability God puts on old people is not the same as that He requires of those who are in the prime of life. As their powers decline, so does their accountability in God's sight. When Jacob was dying, he sent for his son Joseph. Joseph at the time was the second most important ruler in Egypt. The Bible tells us when Joseph came in the presence of his father, although he was nearly blind, feeble, old, decrepit, Joseph bowed his head down to the earth. And this magnificent example of homage to his own origins and the sacrifices his parent had made when he himself was a helpless babe, he respected his father's words and honored his presence. God puts a special weight of dignity and value on that last stage of life. He called himself the Ancient of Days. Daniel's great vision of him describes his hair as being white as wool. For the Christian, those years which are marked for everyone by sagging skin, declining strength, diminished beauty, there is a special blessing from heaven designed to leaven the changes with a deepening sweetness and mellowness of disposition that is charming to saint and sinner alike. Weight of dignity. There's a key phrase. A person who has personal dignity will not stoop to use of foul language, stealing from babies, living in filth. That same dignity will cause him to act toward others with courtesy and concern. When we respect ourselves, it's natural to respect others. Ungracious and unlovely behavior become beneath us. Respecting old people brings dignity, and dignity brings nobility and even beauty. Or think of it another way. The whole world loves to dream and write and sing the romantic stories of love at first sight, of enduring lifetime love, of the sweetness of blooming romance. Well, true love must always begin with respect. It is impossible to love someone, to have a meaningful commitment with that special person, if you do not respect them. And it is just as impossible to truly respect another if you do not respect yourself. So you see, dignity is part of the glue that holds our relationships together and makes our lives meaningful. It is one of the finest gifts we can give each other. Dignity makes theft and backbiting impossible. It makes us tolerant of each other's failings. The book of Job tells us that old men are not always wise, and that's true. But even someone who has made a royal mess of his life and in old age is suffering the consequence should be respected, for God has seen fit to allow him to live in his world. Those who have made good use of their years, well, we should seek and follow their counsel, treat them with kindness, cherish their memory. See where we find these wonderful things. They're in the Bible, and we teach them in church.
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.